Why does the fear of failure exist? Why are people held bound by the fear of failure? This particular episode is going to provide some insights to you, and the goal is to help you turn all of this into everyday tools of transformation and well-being so that you can live your life to the uttermost. What I found about the fear of failure, also referred or called artichokephobia or artichokephobia for some people, is when we allow fear to stop us from doing the things that can change our lives or do the things that can move us towards achieving our goals. So for example, maybe you are entering a new year. You are so passionate about certain projects, but somehow you still feel like, well, I may not be able to achieve this goal. I may not be able to do it right. I may not be able to get it right. All of these fears may just be running at the back of your mind. So why does that exist? Why do all of these fear exist? Number one, and this has to do with patterns from childhood, especially if you have had critical or unsupportive parents while growing up. You may not be conscious of it, but certain incidences, certain experiences from your past, especially when you are growing up, certain experiences may color how you look at what it may actually color your reality, your current reality of whatever it is that's creating fear for you. So if you check it, could it be that there are patterns from your childhood that have actually altered how you view whatever it is you are afraid of? If it has to do with work, could it be that there were certain things you saw constantly over time and these patterns kept repeating themselves? Number two thing that I also saw is past trauma. Of course, this is similar to overprotected childhood and patterns from childhood I just talked about. Now, experiencing a traumatic event at some point in your life, and now when I say past trauma does not mean that when you were a child, it could happen even while you're an adult. So experiencing a traumatic event at some point in your life can be a cause for fearing or being afraid of failure. For example, let's say that several years ago, you gave an important presentation in front of a large group. You did very poorly. That experience might have been so terrible that you became afraid of failing in other things, and you carry that fear even now, even many years later. So Ocholi was 12 years old as a secondary school boy living in the middle belt of Nigeria, and is a bit slow when it comes to reading. Whenever he gets asked to read in front of the whole class, he's being made fun of by his friends, so he feels humiliated. This seems like a normal experience for a lot of people, and not everyone who experiences such an event feels humiliated or develops social anxiety. However, given the resources and the propensity to social anxiety, Ocholi's negative beliefs, which he had gathered from his upbringing, made him more vulnerable to developing social anxiety. And coupled with his state of mind at the time, he experienced this particular playing as a trauma. For some reason, the experience was way too much for his brain to handle, so the incident got trapped inside his brain. Ocholi's brain, which is always trying to serve and keep him safe, stored the information so as to avoid it in the future. Now, as an adult, as a guy working in a corporate organization, every time Ocholi is in a similar situation, which his brain generalizes as the same situation, the same emotion of humiliation gets triggered again. Since he now has situations where he not only perceives humiliation, he becomes afraid of being in them and starts to avoid them altogether. In doing so, Ocholi starts to build up anticipatory anxiety. Of course, I've talked about, and you can check that in the link, in any of the links in the description or in the card above my head right now. So he begins to fear experiencing humiliation again and feels anxiety about it whenever he's approaching social situations. So the anxiety he feels each of these times is basically his brain warning him, careful. This situation is just like when you felt humiliated when you were 12 years old. You might experience it again. Do you get it, what the story that I've just painted for you right now? So sometimes it may not be something that your parents may have caused. It could be something that happened to you maybe even when you were a child, or it may be something that happened to you even when some other experiences were going on in your life. And of course, as with the story of Ocholi, it happened before. Because of his response to it, it's happening to him again. And now it has blown out to become a full-blown social anxiety. So past trauma could be contributing to the fear of failure. You may just be feeling like you are going to be embarrassed. You might be humiliated and all that. That could be another reason why you fear failing. Number 3 reason why you fear failing could be perfectionism. And interestingly, I'm trying to use P in order to keep all of these in check so that you can easily remember them. So number 1 is what? Patterns. Number 2 is what? Past trauma. And number 3 is what? Perfectionism. And when I say perfectionism, of course, many of us already know what perfectionism is, but here's how it works. Perfectionism is often at the root of a fear of failure. For perfectionists, failure is so terrible and humiliating that they don't even want to try at all. Stepping outside your comfort zone becomes terrifying because you're just caught in your head. Everything has to be perfect in your head. And because it's not perfect, you're afraid of failing, and so you don't want to do it. And perfectionism could be a reason why you're afraid of failure. The fourth thing that I'm going to mention here is a cognitive distortion called personalization. And personalization is when you tend to take things personally, even when they are not connected to you or caused by you at all. So, for example, you blame yourself for circumstances that aren't your fault in the first place. You just criticize yourself for things that may not have been caused by you. Or maybe something happens and then you say, the reason why that thing happens is because I did not do this. So why did I do this? Why did I do? And so next time, even when you feel triggered to do that thing, you'll be feeling that thing that happened that time may even repeat itself again. And so because you are personalizing things, you are afraid of failing. And because you're afraid of failing, somehow you may also be afraid of succeeding. I hope that this has been helpful to you. And by the way, I would like to hear from you. Which of these is a tool that you are going to start using right from this moment to help yourself overcome the fear of failure? Please leave a comment in the leave a comment underneath. I want to say in the description, but of course leave a comment. And of course, as I mentioned earlier on, if some of these things are overwhelming for you and you feel like you need to talk to a professional, I'm going to recommend you use the link in the description to schedule a one-on-one call with me. I am Dayo Samuel, and you can check any of the links, any of the videos right on my screen here to continue this conversation with me. In fact, YouTube will most likely tell you to watch this one right now. It is going to tell you that this is what is best for you. So I'm going to recommend you check this out right now. With that said, I am Dayo Samuel once again. I think that should be the second or third time I'm mentioning that. I'm going to see you in the next video.